Hey, Randy here. Shall we make a game? Today I had a bit of an interesting setup. This kind of sort of experimental. Oh, that's not going to open in Blender, is it? Oops. Yeah. I got everything set up, and then I was just sort of checking everything, and I realized my microphone wasn't working, and it didn't come back until I rebooted entirely, meaning my entire setup, including that incredibly witty tweet I came up with earlier. Had to do it all again. Never mind, we're here now. So, yep, we're going to finish this off. I know, right? I know. But 60 days is 60 days. Okay, so what am I going to prioritize? I guess I should probably start off with the window outside. And then we're going to do the kind of like the furniture here, the kind of like trash here, and then we'll know exactly what kind of, what kind of lighting we should have underneath, on the floor and on the walls. And then maybe also then finish this off. I was also thinking about maybe putting like a small hint of a different flooring here to kind of like hint at say like a kitchen or something out of view. Okay, so let's do the cityscape out the window first. This is going to be less dark. Also, it's going to break the kind of like vague rule that we currently have of roughly 8 pixels a meter because it's going to be quite far away. So, I did look this up. An average New York street is about 35 meters across. So I'm going to go for about 30, including sidewalks. So let's go for 35 meters. Damn, that's actually pretty far. Okay, we can get rid of this mirror modifier. I'm not going to need it. Stick these two vertices together and then delete everything else about it. Oops, not the vertices, the edges. Okay. And now we can get a camera back in here and we can see roughly how big we need this to be to kind of look, right. It actually needs to be absolutely massive because I want to be able to move the camera around a bit in here without kind of like seeing the edge of the buildings. So let's go to say 20 meters. 20 meters gonna be enough. How far can I? Yeah, we're probably not gonna look that far to the side. Ah, I'm losing control of my camera. Let's make it 25. Okay, and so that's kind of massive. And how tall are we going to make it? Because again, ideally, we're going to put the camera kind of anywhere reasonable in the room and never see the edge. But part of the problem with that is you could be, where's my camera center gone? I've lost control of my camera again. Yeah, so I'm not super keen on, and this applies to Blender and Maya as well, is the fact that they kind of have, you're kind of orbiting the camera around an invisible point in space, and I've never really quite understood why. It's always seemed like a really clunky way of doing things. I have lost the background, where is it? There it is. How far down does this have to extend for you to be able to like reasonably never see the bottom? Okay, about 15 meters, right? Oh, do I make it more like 20? Because there's always going to be a point at which you can see the bottom. It's just that, is it likely I'm ever going to put the camera there? Okay, let's go to 15. That's probably going to be enough. Because at that point, you're seeing other gaps in the map. That'll be enough. And we probably want to extend it the same way, the opposite way. So if we have kind of like a camera angle sort of looking up, we also don't have the same issue. Okay, that is pretty massive. Let's do a wrap on it. And the thing is, we need to think about how much of this is typically visible through the window. Here, it's typically about that much is visible. And in our sort of texture map, this is like 16 by, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles, 3. So this is 16 by 12 pixels. But that's just sort of the middle, maybe like 7, 1/8 of it. But we can actually just overlay the other geometry we already have and see if we can get it roughly right. So that's far too high res. It's also a background, so there is kind of like a slight expectation it'd be lower res than the rest of the game. Okay, that's probably about right. Let's just stick it there. Not being particularly careful where I put things because a big part of the reason why I've left so much space in this is that I plan on going back in afterwards and kind of making a lot more room. Well, and kind of organising it a bit more. Because if I was going to organise it now, I'd be organising things before I know what I'm organising. It just makes a lot more sense to wait until I've got more of an idea of what it is I'm trying to organise. All right, let's go into A-Sprite, palette, and I'm probably going to need, I'm thinking about this. You're going to have some windows that are lit and some windows that are dark, but you're still going to want quite a bit of palette for both because I want them to kind of like be lit from the bottom as if like there's like really bright streets below. Okay, how far? Oh, that's way bigger than we actually need. Okay. Oh yeah, we're also going to need a kind of like a sky palette as well for the bits between the buildings. And maybe a secondary palette for the odd building you can see poking between. Okay. Again, the hardest bit of doing something like this is always kind of like, I guess what you call breaking ground, you know, like actually sort of like taking a blank space and making a start on it, because it's pretty much always wrong, you know, when you first put something down, and it's really hard to just like kind of accept that and roll with it. Actually, maybe that might be slightly low. I might give that more res because I was kind of sizing it when I had the camera here, but the camera's very rarely going to be there. It's mostly going to be back here. So maybe I actually need to roughly double the size of that. One of the nice things about working in a software renderer is that most of the classical limitations, such as, you know, needing to be power of 2 and stuff like that, none of it applies to me. I can just do whatever I like. That said, I'm not entirely sure that's even true for modern graphics cards anymore. I'm pretty sure they're actually a lot more flexible. It's just that people tend to stick to it because it's kind of like a learned habit. Okay, that's about right. Okay, so let's just drawing some rough silhouettes of buildings. Just kind of, you know, get a rough idea of where we're going to be putting things. See if we can size these right, so you can see like a few buildings through the window, but not a gigantic amount of them. Oh, it's upside down. Let's fix that. There is a bit of a problem here. Depending on where I actually put the camera, you can actually see like a lot of the ground, you know, a lot of below or a lot of the sky. So the building should probably have like lots of layers of buildings. So there's kind of like, there's always kind of like the tops of some buildings, so you can see you get like a real feeling for just how massive this city is. So do something like that. Oh, it's also flipped horizontally. I've done a great job here, haven't I? Okay, let's go for slightly taller than that as well. I'm going for a real mega city here. And maybe I feel like really wider buildings, like I don't know, like a hospital or a factory or something down here. And let's continue expanding it sideways. Maybe I should actually be tiling this. Maybe that would make a lot of sense. Yeah, maybe if I just kind of like, because you're not going to be able to see more than like a tiny strip of this at a time. So yeah, I'm just going to experiment with this. Let's divide it 7 ways, and no, let's just go for 3 ways. And then We're going to texture all of them the same. So grab these two, rip them, put them there. Oops. Stack them all up. That'll also save us a lot of time texturing, and texturing is kind of where where our time will be going. Hey, that tile's okay already. I mean, like, I need to fix this, but that tile's actually kind of okay. Right out the gate without even really intending to make a tiling texture, that actually looks okay. And yeah, you can see so little of it normally that you can barely tell it's tiling. That's fine. So let's have a look in here. Where have we got? Let's see. So the right hand side of this building here is where we're starting, and then I think it's about there. Oh no, we perfectly captured this. So there's a subtraction selection. There we go. There we go. Aha! I was still got in subtract mode. And then I need to move this back onto this. Wait, let's come out wider. How's that happened? Oh, okay. I was looking at the edge of the wrong building. So, simple enough. Just shut that way. Some of it's gone off the screen. That's fine. We didn't need that anyway. So now we can work on just patching up the bits that don't have great continuity. So this building at the bottom, I might split this up a bit. Let's do one like that. Split that out there. And now I've got this thing, we've got like sort of two buildings ending on the same pixel. It's a bit weird. Nobody would ever line something like that up in reality. Start removing all of the extra lines so we can kind of start getting a feeling of exactly how this is going to hang together. At the moment I've got a thing where the buildings are kind of always stacked on top of each other right to left, which is a bit weird but unnatural. You'd never really do that in reality. So let's stack them the other way around. Okay, all right. Yeah, and this will become a bit less ambiguous when we've actually got some colors on it. I might also actually just erase the lines between them and see how that looks. So I kind of like how these looked. I'm thinking like they're gonna be so distant and so kind of low pixel density that you're not going to be able to see individual windows and stuff anyway. So a line of close buildings would kind of sort of merge into one because you're just going to basically see like the light reflecting off them pretty much. Okay. And all the stuff down here, I've got no idea what I'm going to display down there. Because the thing is, if this is only 35 meters away, you should be able to see an opposite row of buildings. I didn't really think about that. Oh well, that'll do. We've got some nice parallax there anyway, and it's not, you can't freely move the camera, so it's probably not going to matter that much. All right then. So now let's actually get pixeling this. So new palette, and I'm thinking going for kind of like a very sort of like sodium light, kind of like yellowish look. So you know, that kind of like orangey yellow kind of look. It's going to be more sort of yellow at the bottom because it's going to be brighter. I had palette lock on again every time. I don't understand why this palette lock is on by default. It means you can't edit colors, and well, you can. You know, you can slide these around all day. It doesn't do anything. Okay, all right. Let's just temporarily just color this in something different, just so I've got a fresh set of colors. All right, starting from the bottom, let's go for kind of like a brightish yellow. And then just start kind of shading them in, I guess. And then we're going to start sort of fading to a more kind of like orangey red. Getting slightly darker. These are going to look absolutely terrible until I've gone in and sort of divored them a bit. Maybe desaturate that a bit more. Darken it a bit more. And same with that. Okay, these are going to look pretty weird until I go in and make them a bit less kind of, you know, just flat islands of color. That's a bit weird. Oh, also, I'm going to get rid of the outlines because the outlines wouldn't sort of actually be there. This yellow might be a bit too bright, actually. Okay, let's also sort out these flat lines of color because they shouldn't be here. So these outlines shouldn't actually be here. Okay, those colors are a bit strange, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I might actually use the div tool for once. I might actually use one of the features of this application rather than just using the pencil tool. Okay. I guess these wouldn't necessarily be lighting up the interior of the building we're in, but they're going to be kind of, you know, hinting that the whole city overall is kind of lit from below. Oh, that's completely wrong. That's way too bright. Okay, let's start. Again, every time I have to make a color, I'm like, yeah, I'll make it really bright. That's a, yeah. That's a bit more like it. Although it's still going to look pretty weird for a moment until I've done all of these. There is actually a tiling tool I could be using in this again. Again, like there are tools in this I could be using to make this easier, and I'm just not for some reason. Maybe I should do a second row of buildings in front just to kind of like make them look, you know, just have something a bit closer than this, because it does feel kind of weird that you basically like got this apartment like overlooking like a big void into a row of buildings. It's a bit strange. It's meant to feel more claustrophobic, so maybe I should have more, have like a, you know, have it looking between two buildings opposite. That'd be really good. Yeah, that's actually starting to take shape. That's cool. I was a bit worried though. I was a bit like, have I made a big mistake here? Is this you know the wrong way to do this? But it is starting to take shape. Doesn't quite look right yet, but it's starting to make a bit more sense. Okay, so I wasn't quite sure what to do with the floor here, and I guess once I've actually finished this, I'll just mirror it and make kind of like sort of like a waterfront type thing. So next up, we need to make these look a bit more like buildings. So let's have a look at let's just have a look at a bit of a skyline. Yeah, what kind of like, if you kind of look at the skyline and kind of like without sort of really focusing too hard on it, what makes it actually look like a skyline? Because you have like patterns on the building, so you have floors, some buildings have kind of like more sort of geometric patterns, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's probably the kind of patterns I should be adding. I don't have a lot of pixels to work with here, but we can probably at least get some of the basic patterns in. Like for example, we get some of those those kind of like vertical stripes in, kind of like this, just by sort of skipping to the next color in the palette. Yeah, that does make the tiling a bit more obvious, but again, most of the time where the camera is, that's not going to be obvious at all. Maybe get like the odd sign on top of the buildings as well. I feel like that would make a big difference. Yeah, that way. I kind of wish I had like a darker color I could put on top of that, but I'm trying to stick hard to this yeah, this four shades rule. I don't know why, I just am. Let's extend this up a bit just so we've got a bit more room to work with. Effectively makes the building kind of 3 shades rather than 4, but it works. And I'm going to have to darken the building around it so there's a bit more contrast. Okay, that's starting to work a bit. Let's extend this pattern to the other buildings in the area. Actually, I don't want 2 stripy buildings sort of overlapping, so I'll make this one vertical stripes just so they're kind of separated a bit. Oh wait, that's a different building. At that point, we can use it to kind of really hint at. You can use it to kind of really separate the buildings a bit and make it a bit more obvious which building's which. Okay, with this one, what am I going to do with this one? I guess I'll do another. I will do another horizontally striped one just because I can't really do vertically striped. It's right next to that one. And the kind of like thing where the sort of like the kind of crosses, the kind of like cross braces, that's extremely rare. You very rarely see buildings like that, so I'll try and hold off on that as long as possible. And then wrong windows. Okay, that's starting to come together. It doesn't really tend to be the really tall buildings that have that cross bracing on. I wonder why that is. You know, I wonder what kind of like reason there is for having those cross braces on it. Is it just aesthetic? Because you know, well, I mean, that building's taller. If it was like structural, you'd think that building would need it. I guess it must be primarily aesthetic. Just take no time at all, just to pixel this in. Actually, I'm not happy with how that's come out pixel wise. Doesn't quite look right. What have I done wrong here? Okay, there we go. All right, almost there. Just got this one more building to put in. What are we gonna do with it? I guess with this one, I could just do kind of like more for like a random sort of like stippling pattern, just to kind of make it look a bit more sort of like individual windows running off, I guess. I'm not sure. I mean, to be careful not to draw a smiley face on any of the buildings. That'd be kind of weird. Hey, that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, let's just add just a bit of random detail to these remaining ones because I don't quite know what to do with them. They're too small really to have any repeating patterns on them. And this one here needs something. Again, just random dots and noise. There we go. Next up, a bit of sky behind it. So again, it should be pretty dark, but it's going to be lit from the bottom to kind of like really reinforce that, you know, that there's really bright light below the building. Probably not going to see much of that because the camera angle kind of goes that way, but you're going to be able to see a bit of it. So let's lean into the thing of how I always start too bright and just go for a really bright color. Trying to avoid purple again because I always make things purple. It's a bit of a problem of mine. Desaturate that a lot. Darken it a lot. Bit of saturation. There we go. Oh, that is way too bright. You're looking at it up there and it's like, oh, that's quite a nice kind of sedate kind of, you know, it's not quite purple, it's a mauve. And then you actually see it in context, like, oh my god, that's eye-searingly bright in context. And then we're going to break that up a bit with just a bit of jumble it up a bit. Let's just see how it looks kind of in context. Oh yeah, that's... Oh, you know what? That actually kind of works. That actually kind of looks good, and I was expecting it to be way too bright. I might still tone it down very slightly, but that actually works a lot better than I was expecting. It's mauve, not purple, okay. Okay, that actually kind of works. So again, yeah, gonna jumble this up very slightly. Maybe add a bit of dithering to it, just to see if we can give it a bit more kind of, a bit more texture. Thank you. And same up here. There is probably a tool in ASPRite to do this. It's a common enough thing. I think there's kind of like a system kind of like Photoshop, GIMP, Krita, whatever. They have kind of like the idea of kind of having sort of brushes, and I think they exist in this, but I've never looked for them. Never really reached for them. I think they'll actually look better flat. I'll leave it like that for now. See how we go. And now I'm going to try and make a reflection of this. So let's grab a couple of palettes. Like just sort of like a slightly darker version. Oh, seeing that there, that kind of like empty space there, it kind of looks like the moon over it, but if I did put the moon in this, you'd end up with like 4 moons, so I'm not going to do that. So how big a space are we trying to fill in with reflection here? We are looking to fill in 27 pixels. So I grab 27 pixels of this. And then, this won't look any different now, but I'm basically just replacing all of the instances of the sort of primary light with the equivalents in the reflective palette. Again, there might be a faster way of doing this. I find myself doing this a lot in this editor. So again, just going to go through these and just darken them a lot. And do the same with the skylight. Maybe you could do like a strip of land between the two just to kind of make it look a bit less like the buildings go right up to the waterfront. It probably also do being a lot darker than that. As per usual, I've massively overestimated how bright something should be. Okay, that's more like it. That's more like it. I might be tempted to shift it down a bit though, because like from the kind of like the normal camera angle, it's a bit too close to the horizon. Yeah, I'll do that now. Just see how that looks from the sort of normal camera angle. No, shift it back up a bit. Maybe just 2 or 3 pixels, not like that many. I want to be careful with this though, because I'm making it look like making it look like the apartment's way too high up, which it shouldn't be, because this is meant to be kind of like a slightly more run-down part of the city. I don't know. This is what I was a bit kind of hesitant about putting the water reflection in. It's like this would actually be a really nice view. Okay, so do I go for a second row of buildings in front, just to kind of help reinforce that kind of sort of more claustrophobic sort of view thing? Do I go for that? Maybe not for now. I'll wait and see how it kind of looks later on. Okay, next up, if I bring the reference back up, let's set this off transparent, because we no longer really need it to be transparent. We've got some sort of boxes over here. Oh, we've got a picture on the wall. Might do that next. So that'll be really quick to do. And we've got sort of like a side table with a lamp on it. So if I was going to do this picture on the wall, ideally it wouldn't. Yeah, let's do 3 by 2 tiles. So that's going to be 12 by. Hang on, no, it's not. You can do maths. Even at this time in the morning, 24 by 16. So gotta find a nice space that's the right size. There we go, that'll do. And there. Now I am thinking about slightly kind of rotating it. So if I had it kind of like that, and then I need to just move these to the right part of the unwrap, and they're all flipped. Keep doing this. I keep doing this, where they're just all random orientations. At least it's easy to fix. I don't know what things like soft image would like to use, but I imagine that trying to do this with whatever they were using to make things like Silent Hill would have people tearing their hair out. Okay. Oh, it's kind of a transparent painting, so I haven't filled it in. That's kind of weird. I might actually want it leaning the other way. So I want it kind of like, I want it to sort of, when you're looking at it from the usual camera angle of kind of here, let's just put this bit away because we don't need to see them wrap very much at the moment. I kind of want it to look like it's slightly leaning off the wall. So I'm just going to flip this and see if it kind of gives that effect. Yeah, it does. That's kind of what we're after. I might flatten the top and bottom very slightly just so that it kind of looks like it's leaning rather than it's leaning away from the wall rather than looking like it's sort of not hung up straight. Yeah, whoever lives in this place, they take some kind of like pride in its appearance, but like they're limited with what they have, so they maybe don't have the tools to hang this painting properly. There we go. And now we just grab the... Oh, actually, I could use this opportunity to put some shadow around it as well. Move it a few pixels across just to make room for the shadow. Turn the grid off because it makes it... When you're working with like colors that are this dim, having a grid kind of overlaid over everything actually kind of makes it hard to see what you're doing. Maybe I should change the background color a bit, given we're working with such a dark scene. Yeah, so I can go to... Oh, this is capturing. That's cool. That's cool. The Blender menus don't capture, but I guess these aren't real windows, so they show up in the same window. That's a bit more like it, I think. And I think I'll just do a single pixel shadow down there, just as a bit of a hint to it, but not too much. Oh, have I got misaligned? I think I have. Ah, and of course I need to shorten it top and bottom so there's a bit of shadow sort of above and below it as well. Okay, so again, I need to be careful to make sure I'm looking at it from the rough angle that the real camera would be looking. Okay, I hadn't really thought ahead about what was actually going to be on this painting. I kind of just went, oh, it's just a landscape or something, you know, it's just got a hill, and to be honest, we have so few pixels to work with here that it probably doesn't need to be exactly, well, it probably doesn't need to be a Da Vinci or something like that. I'm going to reuse the palette I used for this because it's kind of like our sort of wood tones. Kind of give a bit of a hint of a bevel on it just by having kind of like the two colors that are kind of like darker than one of it. Okay. Grab this, and we're going to desaturate it a lot, darken it a lot. So we kind of like a sort of like a grass color, with like a slightly lighter variant of it as well. Go more green, go more saturated. Let's go real Windows XP background here. And we're also going to want like a sky color. Let's go for a sunset. Ish. Oh, that's that's not where it was supposed to end up. Again, I just look at the color and I go, yeah, that's right. And it's just, no, that's just way too bright. That will probably do. Okay, yeah. If I just darken that down a bit, that will actually look vaguely right. I guess one of the things about this is I'm trying to think what the right word for this is. Maybe the conceit is that it's kind of meant to be a painting inside a game that's, like it's meant to be kind of like a slightly lower sort of definition image inside a game that's already lower definition. So having it have basically no colors kind of meets that goal, I guess. Let's try lightening it along this edge a bit because, yeah, there we go. That gives it kind of the impression it's sort of separating from the wall. I think also this shadow here needs to end a bit sooner. I'm trying to like figure out why it kind of looks like this row of pixels here isn't a shadow. It looks like it's it looks like someone painted the top of the frame the same color as the wall. It's not what we're going for. And I think it's just because the shadow extends way too far. Aha, that's what we're after. Let's extend this a bit further this way, lighten that way. Okay, it might also start looking a bit less weird when this is kind of sorted out. It's from the it's from the Renaissance. Okay. Lighten this up a bit along here as well. I just spent more time painting the shadows around the frame than I did the actual painting on the wall. Okay, let's darken this a bit because, again, it's meant to be pretty dark in this room. That's too dark, though. Let's drop the saturation a bit because that does tend to bring the brightness up slightly. One of the things that's so weird, right, about human perception is that things aren't very linear in human perception, and like a linear increase in brightness results in kind of like a non-linear kind of response, I guess. That'll do. Okay, next up I'll be doing I need to do the curtains at some point. I guess I'll do these sort of boxes in the corner next. They're probably gonna be quite fast to do. Oh, that's right. I never actually textured the bottom tile of this bookcase. I just left it open. Let's fix that next. So over here, grab this. And then start shading it more towards the ground. And very good. Sorted. Right, next up, cardboard boxes. So again, going to go pretty kind of like fast and loose with the actual modeling of this. It's going to have like the kind of like two flaps open on the top, but I'm not actually going to model what's under them because you're not really going to, A, it's not really the focus of the scene. B, you're not going to be able to get the camera close enough to really see that they're kind of not really modeled. I should probably stop doing this, you know, where I keep like copying this model around with its kind of weird offset center. But I'm not going to, I'm going to keep doing it. How big are we going here? I might actually make it slightly intrude into the carpet just so I get a bit more space out of it. There we go. Oh, I might end up shading the bookcase more if it's going to be that big. Yeah, that's like twice as big as I was really intending it to be. Lower still, lower still. Anyway. Oh, no, don't snap to that. Whatever that was you just snapped to, don't snap to that. And then subdivide it down the middle so I can give it kind of like the slight sort of rise in the middle to make it look like it's slightly open. Kind of like that. And then I'm going to merge that vertex with there. Again, I feel like this is slightly too big. So I'm going to break grid slightly. I'm going to go slightly smaller. Oh, it does need back faces realistically because the camera might actually sort of go there. Okay, we'll do that. But I'm going to unwrap it first. Kind of lesson learned on that. Unwrap it first and then start copying. Unwrap geometry before you start copying it around. So, given I've messed around with the scale on this, I have no idea how big this object actually is. So I'm just going to eyeball the pixel density. So let's go for 2.5, 5. That's still slightly too high, so let's go for say 0.5. That's way too low, so let's go for 0.75. That's about right. I've got pixel snap on, and this sort of the kind of like peak of the box being open at the top doesn't quite match the grid, so I'll just eyeball it, get it close enough. There we go. And that spacing is probably gonna be more sort of believable when we kind of have the open top. So looks pretty good. Is it definitely left right symmetrical? Yes. And let's just find a nice spot to stick this. I'm going to have to modify this this atlas a bit when I actually get it into Engine, because you can mostly get away with in Blender with having say like UV islands kind of touch. In my engine, you can't. It will look absolutely terrible. You'll be able to see like pixels from the other side of the you'll be able to see like say pixels from here bleeding into this. Okay, so let's move this way. Oh, that's actually nearly right. And this one I'm guessing needs flipping. Next check, is this actually the right way around? Oh, it is. I've actually got this the right way around for once. It doesn't need flipping. The actual geometry here, it's actually facing the wrong way. So is that now 1? No, it's still not 1. Oh, I haven't actually merged the vertices together in 3D space. So they won't merge into. Ah, there we go. There we go. And then we just need to unwrap the top. Again, no idea how big these should be, but I can vaguely scale it by comparing it to the unwrap for the sides of the box, which is there. Yeah, it doesn't really tend to matter exactly how precise your kind of unwrap is, as long as it's consistent between sort of, you know, where you've used it. Oops, I didn't mean to join this together. Do I want them joined together? I mean, despite the fact I've, you know, drawn something a bit infantile with my UV islands, I probably want them separate. Just because packing that would be a bit... Just because packing that infantile shape would be a pain. Try and find a way of saying this without it being infantile, but coming up short. Right, so we're going to intentionally do something a bit weird, but it might look good. It might look good in context. So yeah, basically like using the top row of pixels to kind of make this look, kind of make it look like it's the shadow of the sides. Bit weird, wouldn't normally do that kind of thing, but I think it kind of fits here. And we can now start shading this in a bit. And something I want to try doing with this is, because it's supposed to be a cardboard box, right? It's meant to be corrugated. And we can kind of texture that in. Give a bit of a hint of what this object is supposed to be. even though of course the corrugations in reality would be nowhere near that thick. Those are like an inch across. That's probably good enough. And then we're going to do the back side of it, which should be very similar, but way darker. This darker grid is starting to be a problem when it comes to the really dark bits. I can't really see what I'm doing there, so I'm actually going to brighten that. I'm going to brighten this grid up very slightly. Still can't see, still can't see. And then we're going to grab a very slightly brighter color and then just aha. Aha. That's starting to look good. And I can actually trim off the entire top row of pixels because of course that's just for the side. And this side is going to be basically the same thing, but extremely dark. In fact, I can probably just shade the entire side of it in black, and it'll probably fine, given how close it's meant to be to like an occluding surface. Aha. Now I'm going to sort out the top over here, which is kind of here-ish. Maybe I will actually want a single row of completely, near enough completely black pixels along there, just to kind of hint at the gap between the two halves. Oh yeah, that looks pretty good. There we go, without actually modeling the flaps on top, it actually vaguely looks like they're there. And then do the inverse of this, just have like these slight corrugations, kind of like lighting up this side. Not too much though. Let's go for a darker color down here. And there we go. And now, probably the most complex object we have left is the side table and the light next to it. So look at the kind of reference. Okay, and also there's actually a small box on the floor, so we can probably just reuse a lot of techniques we use for that on that small box. So the table's actually quite low, probably low enough that it would actually be impractical to use in that chair. But it's for kind of like more scene. It's more for kind of like scene composition, right? You wouldn't want the table right in front of the chair because it would block your view of the chair. And also, we're going to have a protagonist kind of stood on that chair. Oh, stood on the chair? Not stood on the chair. Sat in the chair for quite a bit of time. So we don't really want too much clutter directly in front of him. Just going to apply the scaling on that, given I've messed with it. Okay, it's TV. We're going to scale it down scale it to -1 to flip it around. And then we're going to flip the faces because that will have actually turned the model inside out, scaling it to -1 on one of the axes. I've got backface culling off at the minute, so you can't see it, but oh yeah, that's completely messed everything up. I'm also going to fix this part of the carpet. There we go. Oh yeah, and part of the chair is just missing. Any other obvious missing faces before I move on? Right. So I'm probably want to scale this down a bit as it's way too big. Just going to grab this reference piece and kind of move it where we can see it more easily. I probably have to move it out of shot though when it actually comes to texturing, because having something that bright right next to where I'm trying to texture is probably going to like mess with perception a bit. We can move this UV out of the way because we're working on this bit here. So the actual width of that roughly matches, but it's a bit too tall. So I'm going to try and drop the height down just a touch. So let's go to 0.5 meters. That's about right. Given there is actually quite a large difference between the top and the bottom in terms of width, I am actually going to split it out into separate polygons. And that means I'm probably going to have like a single... Do I model the edge? I'm like, do I model the edge of the table? You know, it's so low to the ground that I think I can get away with not doing that. So I'm going to try and get away with not modeling the edge of the table. Go put this together, split these out into their own sort of group of polygons, and I'm just going to unwrap the top of this to like the same pixel density as this, just so I can get an idea of whether I've got it right. Where's the TV stand? There it is. Okay, so it's currently 16, is it 16 pixels across? Let's just check that. Let's just fact check that before I do something stupid. Also, yeah, 16 pixels across. And we're looking to lose a couple of pixels from each axis. So that means it should actually be, well, it should be three quarters the size, shouldn't it? That's simple enough. So I'm just going to grab the corners of the top piece, snap the cursor to selected. I'm going to use that as our rotation center, or in this case, our scaling center. Scale down a bit. Okay, and now I just need to go in and just fix the pixel density, because that should be about there. Does that still match the top? Actually, I know it's I know I multiplied the size by 0.75, so I can probably do that in here. Right. And then in the kind of reference, there is a oh, the lamp's actually behind it. I keep forgetting that. There's going to be sort of like a box on here with like some paper and stuff. The paper we can just texture on. The box, however, will actually need to be modeled because it's, you know, it's just there. And also there's going to be a small box here, but that's going to be a separate object. Grab these, move them a bit. This is going to be small enough that if the unwrap for this isn't quite right, it's not really going to matter. I think it's going to be like a box of tissues or something, so that's probably about right. So I'm just going to add the top face before I start rotating it, because we'll lose the ability to easily, you know, rotate it, easily move these vertices around precisely once I've done that. We can now take it off rotation center, off the 3D cursor, because we're going to be rotating it kind of freely. No, don't go over there. Let's turn the snap off. It keeps messing me up because I keep forgetting how it turned on. And then we're going to have one more box down here on the floor. So I think I might just do that now. I'm just going to copy this over because it's going to be very similar to this. In fact, I'm just going to reuse that box. Yeah, I'm just going to reuse that box. That's actually perfectly fine to do. Just makes sense, you know. Might end up doing a unique texture on it just to kind of like better capture the light in the room. And I'm also going to flip it along that axis. Yeah, I'm going to uniquely texture that actually. Oh no! Whoa, what is this tool? What the heck am I doing there? That's some 4-dimensional stuff. I don't know what the heck's going on there. Okay, and then we've got one more thing to go in, which is going to be the light, which I might try and do again with a billboard, as it's going to be quite, it would otherwise be quite sort of like strangely high density in terms of polygons. Okay, we're an hour in, so we've got roughly an hour left. We're getting there, If I can keep this pace up, I might have it just finished by the end of this sort of session. Not an engine, not even close, but kind of finished. Now we actually know where all of the objects are going to be planted in the scene. I'm going to see if I can sort out this floor, because it could really do with you actually being textured. I'm mostly just going to sort of flat paint it all black, just to kind of put something under there. And if it looks unnatural in any places, I can kind of fix that later. One of the things is it's getting so dark. I'm like, well, is this a tile or is it just the background? It's just the background. Maybe I should set the background color to something that I'm just not going to use in the scene, like say a slight green. Yeah, there's going to be no green in the scene, right? There we go. Now the background, without being distractingly bright, is actually distinguishable from the artwork. So let's just darken this a touch there. Oh, I darkened the wrong one. Welcome to background color simulator. There we go. Yeah, now it's always clearly distinct from what we're doing. The one of the annoying things about Sprite is I'm pretty sure that setting doesn't save per file, and it feels like one that always should. So, I haven't unwrapped these at all. Okay. I'm just going to delete that geometry, and I am going to replicate this along here. This might be the point at which I start. I apply the mirror to the room, so I can start splitting these out. I can start uniquely sort of like unwrapping these for the left and right side. Oh yeah, the painting's actually because it's mirrored. The painting's actually on the other side of the wall behind the bookcase. It's actually kind of funny. Okay, copy that. Move it there. Separate into its own object. As per usual, we are getting rid of the mirror. We're going to array it. Constant offset -0.5. And then we're going to array it the other way, which is constant offset 0.5. I've gone the wrong way. Every time I do that. Every time I go the wrong way. Yeah, so I might want to put a little bit of light on these tiles here, just because it's a bit strange that, you know, they're kind of like completely unlit, despite the fact there's no like major furniture sitting on them. Let's apply, and then I'm actually going to mirror this and then apply it. So I'm going to do a slightly different unwrap on this side to that side, just to kind of like account for the. Let's apply the mirror as well. We're at that point now. Just to account for the fact there's different sort of stuff sitting on the floor. Okay, so now we can move this one up here. Yeah, so we're going to start kind of hinting at this kind of bit not being covered up. Maybe we should have something a bit more custom because the carpet, it's only going to be a very small shadow, but the carpet is going to be casting a shadow, isn't it? These colors are so dark, I'm having a lot of trouble distinguishing them. Yeah, I might need to make like an alternate sort of like tile just for kind of like these sort of like further in the room bits of carpet, just because it looks a bit strange at the minute. Yeah, that looks a bit weird, but I feel it's about as close as I'm going to get with those tiles. Yeah, let's sort this out next. Let's make a variation of this texture for that particular box. Yeah, not particularly realistic in terms of like, you know, Generation 5 modeling. You would never make a separate copy of the same texture just to put very subtly different lighting on it. But it's meant to kind of look like how Generation 5 is remembered for looking, not necessarily how it actually looks. Oh yeah, I've only got one side on this, haven't I? Yeah, the other side doesn't actually exist. We can probably get rid of this face and just have this one. So I'm actually going to flip this back around. Actually, maybe that doesn't need a unique texture. That actually looks better when it's flipped. Why did I flip that in the first place? I don't know. That actually looks okay. I'm actually just going to not do that. I'm just not going to make a unique version of that. That looks perfectly fine as it is. Okay, let's stop procrastinating and let's get the table textured. So, oh, it fits nicely into that space there. So that gives us a nice guide to work with here. Again, going to be using those wood textures. No, it's wood textures, wood palette, wood colors. My brain is melting. And it's the wrong way around. Let's just check if it's just the wrong way around or if it's flipped, because it's probably flipped as well. Yep, it's flipped. And it's the wrong way around. There it is, there it is. Of course, there's no right or wrong way around, but I would think that with something that, you know, is only going to be seen from one angle, the right way around is whichever way you'll be looking at it from. So let's kind of shade the corners in a bit and then really kind of darken the edges in. Okay, but we're going to want some various paraphernalia on this table. Let's draw a bit of shadow under this tissue box thing. Oh, actually, yeah, I wasn't going to extend it around the front, but that'll actually help sort of cement it into the scene of it, give it a bit of kind of like faux ambient occlusion. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that helps a lot. And brighten it up just a touch. Oh, that is the mid-tone. I was like, I must have like a shade between this really bright tone and this really dark tone. I was like, nope. It's just like an absolute like cliff jump from the darkest color to the second darkest color. Okay. Do we have any colors in the scene currently really appropriate to the color of the paper? I might reuse the color from the TV because honestly, that's kind of like a sort of like a. Even though that's meant to be a silver and that would meant to be like a white paper, A, the paper's probably a bit grubby, and B, this is right next to the window and this is nowhere near it. Let's make a whole stack of papers. Don't need to be super detailed, just need to kind of like hint at that they're there. Nope, that looks terrible. I'm making some new colors. Yeah, there's just too much variance between the brightest shade and the one beneath it for that to really work as paper. Let's get rid of all of that. Let's get rid of all of that. Damn, I'm actually having a bit of a hard time here making this look like a stack of papers with this few pixels. Will that do? That'll kind of do, I guess. Oh, I guess the other thing is like this here should still be the paper. It should just be getting more and more shade as it goes into the tissue box. There we go. Right, and that's way too bright. I'll fix that in a second. So yeah, let's crank this down a lot. Oh, I love like working with pixels because you can just you can get the shapes right and then totally separately get the color right. It's so kind of satisfying just to be able to see like something take shape and then kind of take shape, if you know what I mean. Okay, let's just give a bit of a hint that there's something on the paper just by kind of having like some slight lines and dots and things on it. Yeah. Also, if you get the 3D cursor out of the way, where's the option to do that? There it is. Get over. Okay, that looks all right. Next up, we need to do the underside of it, which is kind of already unwrapped. Yeah, it is already unwrapped. So I'll put it there, and I'll put it there. Actually, maybe I'll put them side by side. Hey, got it on, got it on. So it's kind of underneath this. See if we can, oh, it's gonna be more like that, isn't it? Now, one of the things I could be doing to kind of like get this more accurate is you can export an image of your unwraps in Blender. The problem is it doesn't really work for low resolution stuff because there's so few pixels for it to work with that you can't really see what you're doing. If you think about like how, if I say grab the entire scene here. Oh, they're a bit weird. Something's not quite right there. Yeah, if you think about like the actual export, like there'd be so many polygons so close together that you wouldn't actually be able to really see anything on the unwrap. So this should be as dark as possible directly underneath here because the top should be casting shadow on it, and then it should lighten up a bit, but not along the left edge, just along the right edge. And this side should be quite dark because it's kind of in the shadow of the armchair. And then this side should be a bit lighter, but still kind of dark. Just because it's so close to the floor. And it should get darker again as it goes towards the floor. Oh, damn it, I misaligned it by a pixel. No? Oh, it's mirrored. There we go. And then I've kind of got two choices here, right? I can either make it transparent and have the floor underneath it kind of like, you know, visible. But I don't really feel that's actually necessary on the basis that it's going to be mostly kind of like black underneath anyway. And the it just means I'll have to do less sort of texturing work underneath it. So I might just do that. And you can't really tell that's not transparent underneath. Not really. Nah, I'll make it transparent. Oh, but then that's kind of weird, doesn't it? You can see the wall and stuff behind it. I feel like maybe I need a darker shade of carpet actually, just because that's a bit too. Maybe it should go like completely black, like that. Yeah, we're getting into brightness levels in the game. It's like getting kind of hard to sort of tell apart properly with kind of like real world light. I'm gonna have to get one of those hoods to go over the screen so it kind of shuts out all the natural light. Put a bit of a shadow under these papers. Not too much because they're very thin, but they'll have a bit. Bit more light around here, and then a bit more shadow of the armchair. Right, next up, we need to do this tissue box. We have 40 minutes left, and we are so close to being done with this. So close. Oh yeah, I still need to do the curtains. They're actually really quite important to the scene. Actually, I probably should have done those a lot sooner. Again, such a small detail. It needs like barely any pixels. But let's just compare it to the thing next to it. So that's about 4 or 5 pixels across. So we'll go for 4 pixels. And I might reuse the colors from the painting just because, you know, it's going to be something that's kind of like artificially painted. Oh wait, what's going on here? Why do we have so many? Do we have lots of UV elements here? No, we don't. It's just they unwelded. Okay. I thought we had more UV elements than we were supposed to have, but we don't. And I guess I'll stick it there. Okay, that's pretty good. And so I just need to figure out which face is which. So that's actually the right face. I might swap these around a bit. Let's just draw a line across it just so I can check for kind of continuity. Yep, that's unwrapped completely wrong. I mean, obviously, you know, if you're seeing it like this in the unwrap, you expect that line to kind of be continuous over the whole thing. That's completely wrong. Let's fix that. I guess I shouldn't have put these seams on it. That's probably what's thrown it so much. It's also flipped, I think. Yes, it is. It is also flipped. Okay, almost there. How difficult can he make unwrapping a box with 3 sides? You won't believe. You won't believe it. And then we're gonna hint at a bit of like kind of like, we're gonna hint at a bit of a kind of like an opening in the top of the tissues. Oh, that's not quite come out how I thought it was going to. Let's rotate that top slightly. Ah! Looks pretty good. I'm just going to darken this a bit because it looks a bit weird that the paper is so light with this sort of object right next to it, which is meant to be kind of occluding the light bouncing around the room. And I might also flip the texture I had on the side of it because it kind of looks like the light's coming from the wall rather than the window. So that one, flip it that way. Yeah, it looks okay. It looks okay. Still not thrilled about it, but it looks okay. Maybe I lighten this slightly so there's a bit less of a join, and I put the shadow on this side instead. That will do it, I think. There we go. And then I've got to texture the other legs of the table. So I'm basically just going to take this side and copy it over there, I guess. All right, that is starting to look way more kind of coherent and sort of finished. It's not quite there. I need to sort out all this, this mess over here. Do something about the light because it kind of like looks a bit weird at the minute. That is so close to being done. I've got to say this kind of like weird sort of carpet lighting has grown on me a bit. It still looks a bit weird, but it has kind of grown on me a bit. So I might just leave it. Yeah, there is some time pressure here trying to build a game prototype, even for a simple game in about 60 hours is actually quite a lot of time pressure. It's one of those things where you're just like, it sounds like a good idea. You know, I'm sure I could get a lot done in 60 hours. It's like, that's actually not a lot of time. Think about how long an average work week feels and multiply that by 1.5. And like, oh, that's forever, isn't it? Okay, so now I need to sort of continue this along here and then down there. Oops. Actually, maybe I can just get away with making this full bright. And this one too, actually. That doesn't quite look right. Ah, there we go, that's near enough, right? Doesn't... Oh, actually, that kind of like, I was looking at this now, you got this smooth flow of pixels, and you got this one that sort of sticks out here, and it is actually about the same on both sides. I think I know where that is. I think it doesn't quite, so I wanted this completely blank tile I could use sort of like here and stuff. And I think I just cut pixels out of it rather than making sure they flowed well into this neighboring tiles. So let's go into here. And it's this one here. This one here needs to flow a little bit more smoothly than that. No, that still looks slightly wrong. Have I done something wrong here? Why does it look wrong that side, but not that side? Oh wait, this one's the wrong way up. I think this one's flipped. There we go, that's more like it. Oh, and that's right, I had half of it over here. Yeah, because like when I was originally making these tiles, I didn't quite realize how many I was going to need, and I've just sort of ended up with them in a right mess. I should really fix it, but I'm probably not going to. Okay, maybe I should make some new tiles for this. I'm like, I want it to be dark along the back of these, but I don't really have any tiles that look great when you kind of like fill the entire wall with them. Let's, ooh, didn't want that. Let's experiment with just putting those in there. Let's see how it looks. Oh, off grid again. I wish you could snap to increments of pixels, you know, like multiples of pixels in Blender. I mean, I know it's not really designed for making this kind of model, but it'd be really nice if I could basically just say snap to every 8 pixels, just because I tend to do so much stuff that works on a grid. Okay, we're almost there, we're almost there. It doesn't need to look perfect, it just needs to look reasonable, and then we can just move on. And I'm just going to turn off backface culling so we see what's on the other side. I'm just going to make all these, actually a lot of these, I think I can just delete and you'd never be able to see them. Even though the room isn't like a watertight, you know, even though the room wouldn't be watertight, there's just like no reasonable way you'd ever see those with any of the camera angles I'm planning to use. So, and they'll be easy enough to put back in if I need them, which I don't think I'm going to. I think I'll do that. And I'm just going to shade the corner of the picture as well, just so it looks a bit less weird that you've got bright pixels right next to dark pixels. Yeah. We've cut a lot of corners, and I guess a cardboard box is futuristic. I guess they'll still be using cardboard boxes in the future. We're almost there. We're almost there. It's just I've just realised I've actually forgotten to put the lamp in, so I need to put that in next. Okay, we're almost there. It's looking pretty fleshed out. How's it going for you this morning? Oh, a bit of a roller coaster then, like woken up going, oh God, I have to work on a day where I really wasn't expecting to, you know, probably throwing all of your schedule into chaos and stuff, and then, oh, psych, you don't really have to work. I hear a lot of things like that from people who kind of like, particularly like gig economy and things like that. It just makes it impossible to sort of like plan your life around it, right? I'm fortunate in that I've mostly not really had to experience that kind of thing, but it sounds properly annoying if you're trying to just, well, live your live your life. Okay, so just the shadow on the wall here. Right, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, I guess if you're like near a highway and stuff, there's at least, yeah, it's probably not a huge amount that you could do. Because like if you were, I was thinking, well, you know, maybe you could go see a movie or something like that, but you'd have to find somewhere you can park a truck. It's not like you can park a truck in a normal. You can't pull into a multi-story car park and just park anywhere. Okay, almost got the walls filled in. Oh yeah, that too. Yeah, man, it sounds like a rough job. I guess that's something at least. Yeah, you could pay like a million pounds an hour, and if you can't actually spend it on anything because you're kind of like, I guess that's the other thing as well. Yeah, it's prob it's probably an element of sort of yeah. If there's kind of like sort of like trucker hate, you know, you're kind of like trying to just spend some time off. So I wasn't expecting the wiping tears with money thing. That's it. Just came out a bit out of left field. I was just not expecting that. Oh, that's way too tall for that lamp. Okay, so quickly unwrap this. Okay, I've only got 25 minutes left today. Try and get this done as quickly as possible. Right, roughly how wide is this? How wide did I make this? So it's 0.75, which is 12 pixels across, I think. I think it's 12. Oh, that's another angle, is that, of course, low living expense. I didn't really consider that. I mean, I guess there are upsides, but yeah, it sounds like it sounds like a pretty tough lifestyle, because your entire sort of, well, lifestyle becomes your job effectively, because they're so kind of like tied together. I have known a few people who have done trucking, but they've mostly stayed pretty quiet about it. They didn't really want to talk about it, which might be for kind of like the sort of prejudice reasons that exist. Yeah. Okay, this is gonna look terrible, but we should get an idea of how it fits in the room. Maybe that's it. They just don't want the competition. That's a great point. That's a 5-head move right there. Okay. Oh, it's flipped. Every time I do this. Every time. Okay. Let's go touch to that. That might actually be slightly too big, because it's going to get in the way of the guy who's meant to be sitting in the chair. So I'm going to narrow it by exactly 1 pixel. By which I mean 2 pixels. That's more like it. And it looks vaguely right from every angle, so that's probably going to be good enough. Just rotate it slightly around there. Yeah. That's actually another good point, because most people I'm going to know are people who primarily truck in the UK, and yeah, they sounded pretty tired. Okay, let's reuse these colors for this. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely heard that a few times, a few stories of being asked to, drive way more hours than they should, or haul cargo that they're not actually sort of like allowed to, things like that. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty common in quite a few walks of, quite a few careers, to get occasionally asked to do something that you really, really shouldn't do. But it seems very common in trucking. I guess maybe because of margins and the fact it's basically all third parties, also kind of like external pressures, but I don't really know. Okay, finish this off with, what color was this? Where did they use this? Oh, that's what the TV showing. I might actually use the wood color for this. Oh right, yeah. Yeah, and you basically just have you have no choice but to kind of break the law. Yeah, that's kind of that's not great. And I bet if you do sort of like say, well, you know, there's no margin on this run. You know, if I try and do this, I'm probably going to end up sort of stranded and not be able to get. You probably get an earful from the bosses, right? Who are like, no, we need this delivering to today. It can't wait any longer. You'll make it. You'll make it. There's 5 minutes to spare. And it's like if you've ever driven on the road in the UK, or anywhere in the world. Oh, I've just realized I've made that the exact same color as the armchair next to it, so it sort of disappears into it. That's not good. Maybe I can use the carpet color instead. For some reason, I'm just desperate to reuse colors all of a sudden. Oh wow, that's a lot of travel. I mean, of course, yeah. When most people talk about travel, they mean holidaying and stuff like that. But like that's a lot of that's a lot of miles covered. Where do you think was the best in the in all of your travels? I guess there's a lot of things you have to take into account, like sort of quality of life as a trucker. You're probably like thinking mostly about things like how bad the traffic is, how bad the well, how good the services are, and then maybe things like weather. As someone from the UK, it pains me a lot to say this, but France honestly seems pretty good in a lot of regards. They seem to have very strong sort of worker protections over there, which is a definite positive, and mostly because they actually fight for them. And I've only seen parts of France, but it seemed pretty nice generally. It's kind of weird because you think about what Pride normally does, what being a proud country normally does, with people like almost sort of stop thinking critically about it because they kind of like get too attached to it. That doesn't seem to have happened to France. France. Maybe we could learn a thing or two from them. I don't know. What's this? Where's this? Trying to go as fast as possible because I want to get this done today. Yeah, I bet you've got some great stories over the years. Maybe stories that weren't so great to live through, but some interesting tales nonetheless. I guess good stories usually come from interactions with people, and if you're mostly in a cab, there's not really a huge amount of that. To fix this shadow on the wall here, as I've kind of broken it. I need to make another tile for this. Okay. Let's move this out up there, I think. Yeah, that'll do. This is where the hazards of reusing, well, atlasing come in, because now I'm having to move things around at the 11th hour because I've run out of space. I guess so, right? I mean, I guess in a way, like it almost kind of you're all sort of in the same situation mostly. There's going to be slight differences due to people like having slightly different like rules and stuff. But I imagine there's kind of like a real kind of solidarity between truckers versus the people like pushing them to do dangerous or, well, just mostly just dangerous things. Do you ever look at people like playing Truck Simulator and go, how can you play that like it's a game? Okay, so a quick look at it. Is there anything that isn't obviously done? That's really nice, especially if people are kind of like under a lot of like time pressure and stuff like that. It's really nice to kind of like hear that they do kind of stick together when, well, things are probably very often tough, especially when they get very tough. Yeah, I mean, I've never actually played Truck Simulator, but I imagine it's very much idealized. You just get in the truck and drive it from here to here, and it only I think you can you do it in real world scale? I've never actually looked at it. Only thing we're missing is the curtains, which go on to, oh, we've got to do the curtain rails as well. Arrgh. Oh, I've kind of messed that up a bit. Urgh. Fast. Oh wow. Wow, I mean like yeah, that's a long time spent on the road. Yeah, because I was kind of given the impression that while most people didn't play it like that, that Trick Simulator did have an option for kind of realistic kind of scaling. But yeah, if it's only like 2 hours, that's quite a difference. Because I was considering like Flight Simulator, right? Microsoft Flight Simulator in particular, or X-Plane, in that people actually do real-time flights in that game from one side of the world to the other, and I'm like, that is some dedication. Because especially in the modern plane is just kind of, once you get it airborne, as long as nothing explodes, it usually kind of flies itself. I guess so, I guess so. Okay, let's do a quick texture on this. Quick texture, where is it? There it is. This is probably gonna have its own unique color palette because it is going to be overlapping many objects in the room, because I'm going to have the wind kind of blow it around when the window opens. It's not going to be red eventually. I'm just using it red just so it stands out a lot. Okay, I can kind of like trim a bit off the edges here, trim a bit off the edges here. That needs to be a bit wider, so I'll just make that a bit wider. Wow, those rules are really complex. I was just expecting like a basic kind of, oh, you may drive so many hours a day. That's actually, I guess, to kind of accommodate for occasional situations where like a journey has to be minutes really long. It's like a lot of things. You just go, oh, that'd be reasonably simple, right? And then the reality is, no, the rules are way more complex than that. Okay. Okay, we've got like 4 minutes to texture this curtain. I can go over, but I don't really want to go over too much just because Well, just because I don't want to get into some burnout territory, which I have some experience with. Shall we say? Oh, okay, so there's actually fines involved as well. Oof. And like that sounds pretty steep, like 10 euros a minute. That's crazy. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of reasons that being late could be out of your control. Which country has the worst worst roadworks? Because I think every country, if you ask the drivers there, you know, how are your roadworks compared to the rest of the world? I think everyone would say their country are the worst. Yeah, what can you realistically do with a 9 hour break? Where in at least in the UK you'd struggle to kind of park and like oh yeah, that's actually not a lot of time because like sleep you're meant to get at least like 7 hours, right? I think a lot of people don't quite manage that, but you're meant to aim for 7 hours. Oh, it doesn't contrast enough with the background. I'm really surprised at that because, but this is going to be kind of like kind of bias. Everyone always moans about the roadworks in the UK. Oh, oh, because the roads are being so kind of like under maintained that they're having to keep the speed limit down. Okay, okay, that's yeah, and I can see why if you're on the clock, that would be a real problem. I'm gonna guess they don't apply the same limits to sort of like passenger cars because they're lighter and have do wear the roads out more slowly. Not too sure about this text jumping. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much that's near enough the kind of like real world speed limits anyway, right? So they probably haven't missed out too much by being restricted. That said, I'm working in miles per hour in my head because we still haven't adopted the metric system here fully for some reason. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a real drop. Actually, yeah, does this get confusing? Like places that use metric and places that use still use imperial? That's good. I mean, I can think of cases where even some really smart people have managed to make some really expensive mistakes by failing to convert units. I think one of the I think there was like a Mars probe that actually like crashed into Mars because the overdone there. The people like doing the data entry mixed up imperial and metric, and it ended up a lot closer to to Mars than it was supposed to be. Ah, yeah. I guess like both sides were using the correct units, but they hadn't quite agreed on what the correct units were going to be. Um, there's another example as well. There's an air incident called the Gimli glider where a plane ran out of fuel like a long time before it was supposed to. The reason is it had a defective fuel gauge, but they were allowed to fly the plane if they used the weight of the fuel to measure the to measure how much fuel was in the plane, and I don't know which way around it was, but someone was talking in liters and someone else was talking in, I think, gallons, and they ended up loading the plane with like a third of the fuel it should have had, and they didn't know there was a problem until the engines cut out mid-flight and they had to glide it to an airport. When I say they had to glide it to an airport, they didn't glide it to an airport because they were nowhere near any airports. So they glided it to a disused military base, and then found out when they were about 50 feet above the deck that it was being used as a a drag strip that day. So they landed on top of what was being used as an active racing track, which is insane. I don't think anyone got hurt or anything. Okay, I'm not keen on how those curtains look. I might come back and revisit this later, but I am pretty much out of time. That is really, really close. That is probably at the state at which I could put it into the engine and kind of start working from there. Oh, well, I'm glad I got that just about done. Can pick this back up tomorrow, same time, so it's 9 AM. Probably going to start working on some of the character models tomorrow just to kind of put them in the scene, see how they look, because it might need some adjustments once they're in. Until then, have a great Saturday, and I'll see you some other time.